Have you seen this happen before? Someone has kids. They raise those kids. Wonderful parents. The kids eventually grow up and they don't require as much attention and time of the parents who used to raise them. And now the parents, they have a crisis of what do I do with my time and what is my purpose? How do you prevent that?
Number one, don't lose it along the way. That's the most important thing. And I can't stress this enough. About the time that kid is 6 months old, start scheduling personal time. Your whole life is not being a parent and being a slave to capitalism, because you will burn the candle at both ends until you feel very miserable. Pick something meaningful to you, a hobby, an activity, something you care about that is you. Not something you do with your partner, not something you do with anybody else. It is about you, and you take it and you don't feel guilty about it. Because I know so many mothers especially who feel guilty about any single time they do anything for themselves. What are you teaching your children? It's the exact opposite of what you think it is, because you're setting a terrible example for your kids.
When mom models never enjoying doing something that she loves, then kids think that I should never enjoy doing something that I love for myself.
Bingo.
You and I were talking about this yesterday, but what do you think about this? How often have you seen this happen before? Someone has kids. They raise those kids. Wonderful parents, whether they're the dad or the mother or whatever. And the kids eventually grow up and they don't require as much attention and time of the parents who used to raise them. And now the parents, you know, maybe it's called the empty nester syndrome, but they have a crisis of what do I do with my time and what is my purpose? You know, now what do I... You've seen that happen, right?
Yeah.
How do you prevent that from happening?
Number one, don't lose it along the way. That's the most important thing. And I can't stress this enough. Couples, listen up. Parents, listen up. People of the world. If you are a parent, about the time that kid is 6 months old, start scheduling personal time with each other and finding ways to make it happen. Is the most important thing for you. Your whole life is not being a parent and being a slave to capitalism, because you will burn the candle at both ends until you feel very miserable. And we see that over and over again. It's the number one reason why people seek therapy when their kids are young, is because they've completely lost themselves. And so that's the number one thing, is don't lose it in the first place. Schedule on purpose, personal time. Maybe you can only fit 1 day a month. Maybe you can only fit 1 day a quarter. It's fine. It's still worth it. Do it. Pick something meaningful to you, a hobby, an activity, something you care about that is you. Not something you do with your partner, not something you do with anybody else. It is about you, and you take it and you don't feel guilty about it. Because I know so many mothers especially who feel guilty about any single time they do anything for themselves. What are you teaching your children?
Wow.
Are you teaching your kids a single thing that you would want them to believe? You don't want them to believe that they don't matter, that their only purpose in life is to be a capitalism drone and a parent. So, number one, it is bad parenting. It's the exact opposite of what you think it is, because you're setting a terrible example for your kids.
When mom models never enjoying doing something that she loves, then kids think that I should never enjoy doing something that I love for myself.
Bingo. And so that's the first thing, is you need a hobby, or you need an activity or something that you like to do for yourself. Find it. Love it. Passionate. It's got to be in balance, right? And if anything, I've been guilty, like a lot of men are. We're often guilty in the other way, where we put maybe too much time into the hobby and those things. But what I'm proud of is my kids have seen that example, and they all have their own unique hobbies now at, 13, 12, 11, 10 years old. And they've been,
That's so cool.
Yeah. And like, there's a lot of kids who don't have that, but one of them's the artist. One of them is great at music. One of them is, and a lot of them have multiple and varied interests. And, sometimes they don't even know how good they are. My oldest was like, didn't even know she had, or didn't even bother to tell us she had made honor choir. And then like the day of the concert was texting us like, hey, I have an honor choir concert. Can you bring me clothes? Like, dude.
Oh my gosh.
What? Where
What?
is it?
You, the being that I've raised you from literally the moment you were born and seen you grow up the whole life, and you accomplished something so freaking cool, and you don't tell me?
But that was the other thing that was really cool is like, I have never made a big deal about being great. You know, I don't care that you're great. I care that you do what you love to the best of your ability. That's what matters. And so for her, it was like, yes, I made honor choir. Now that's a huge accomplishment. If people watching don't know, like honor choir, there was 10 different schools. So, you know, the competition is huge to make it onto that roster.
It's one honor choir per each 10 schools.
For 10 schools, because this is a small town.
Wow.
And so,
Wow.
like, it's actually incredible that she made it. And, like, didn't even know.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
I love that.
So
That's so cool.
You know, and like that to me was one of those moments where proud of how I raised her. Now the funny part, that empty nester syndrome, we go to the concert and afterwards, you know, she's 13 now, and I'm like, so do you want to ride the bus back with your friends or do you want to go home with us? No, I'll take the bus. I was like, it's begun. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, like
That's so
she's
cool.
ready to disengage. And you know what, as a parent, I'm loving that for her, right? Cuz I've done my job, and now I know she's going to take more from her peers, but I've done enough to earn that trust with her where she'll come to me when stuff really matters and genuinely care about my opinion, because I've given her that space to kind of develop herself. And I've done that through example. I've also owned my weaknesses in front of my kids. Kids, I have really bad ADHD, and I'm not the most cleanly person sometimes. And I'm disorganized, and but look at what here's how I cope, and here's how I here's my, and like being vulnerable with them, all of those things will give you the space to be a good parent, but also not think you have to spend all your time with it. Like, that's not the be all end all. We make it the be all end all, but it's not.
Yeah. It's really important that children see their parents being autonomous adults instead of just being doting parents, because one day those children will need to be autonomous adults and not just doting parents. And frankly, most of their life they will have to be autonomous adults rather than doting parents.
Bingo.
There's a 20-year period where you are raising children, 30-year if you are one of those extraordinary people. But then that leaves you 60 years where it's not.
Yeah. No doubt.
That's so smart. Sage wisdom there, Johnny. I love that. I want to go back to something that your dad caught you watching porn at 13 and grounded you for 3 months. And that just made you more sneaky. And it could be anything. It could be caught smoking cigarettes in the boys' bathroom. It could be anything that parents catch their children. They're like furious that they're doing. Like, oh my God.
I really wish we wouldn't get copyrighted, because I would slam that Motley Crue right now.
Literally. And I'll do that post-production and then get all the sound muted for the whole video. Don't
Perfect.
worry.
Excellent.
But why is it so common for that trope of parents being so mad at their children that they ground them for 3 months, and then the kid obviously doesn't, the parent wants the kid to know not to do this, but that never seems to work with the way parents ground or punish children. Therefore, why is it so common for parents to do this?
All right.
Because you didn't stop it.
Here
You
comes
didn't even think that it hurts you. You just kept going.
Here comes the deep water.
Okay.
To this day, and I didn't realize it, but to this day, my mother has never grown up emotionally. My dad died last year, and within 3 months, my mom was boy crazy, desperate to find another relationship. I saw her doing the same thing I was doing in my early 20s to try and solve my problems inside. Let me offload this. Let me dispense this into somebody else's responsibility to fix. And not giving herself the time, space, energy needed to actually heal, taking a chance to work on herself, think about what she wants out of the rest of her life or anything like that. It's, I won't feel happy until someone else validates me and gives me love. And so my suggestion to you would be, I think, most of the case, and I don't have any definitive answer to prove this, but I think it's true based on a lot of observation, is most of them are just very emotionally immature. They never took the time to actually grow and work on themselves. They either had kids too young, or they, as soon as they had a little bit of emotional turbulence in their life, offloaded it onto their partner, and now they're with that partner for life. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
And once they're in that relationship, time becomes limited. It's a very limited resource. And so that personal time to grow yourself spiritually and emotionally is not on people's calendar. So when people come to me personally for advice, it's like my first thing is, where are you on your calendar? It's like my first question. Are you on your calendar?
What do you mean? Oh, like in terms of prioritizing time for yourself?
Yeah. Or is everyone else?
Okay.
And what does that time for you look like? Because I promise you it ain't scrolling on TikTok. That's not benefiting your life. It's not doing anything for you. Unless you find our video, in which case it's going to change your life completely. But so, you know, it is one of those things where I think people just don't do that, and they don't see it as important. And that personal development, that spirituality, that growth. You know, it's funny. You and I both both come from a sales background, where like there's a lot of negative stereotypes about salespeople and hustle culture. Many of them are valid. Many of them are true. But the flip side is the benefit of that. I think in sales, you find a select percentage of them, a few people who take that personal development side of it seriously and are some of the most self-actualized people you will ever meet. And it's that reason, is because they're that kind of self-driven person that has a purpose, that has a goal, that has a laser focus on accomplishing a difficult thing, and they want to build that at themselves. Like, and they you know what? It's not just enough for me to, like, I want to know how to do this better, so I'm going to read books, right? How many people read nonfiction books? Well, I would posit that the group of people that are salespeople on probably
number one consumers.
Yeah, number one. Yeah, like absolutely.
Going back to what you say, I think the world and this is just a human problem, but the world, not just American society, but the entire world suffers from an epidemic of most parents being just grown-up children. Yeah. And a lot of them never grew out of that stage. And we're not going to fix it here with one episode, but if we can help the audience that we reach today, who are our age or beginning to have children, or maybe they're 16 years old and they're not going to have children for another 10 years. If we can help them today by bringing light to what's happened in the past with the patterns, to where they can get to that path of self-actualization before they bring in the next generation, I think that would be so cool. You know, that would be the one person multiplies into two, and two people talking about this stuff multiplies into four, and the message gets out.
And it's a perfect segue into, I mean, we're kind of getting there, but like why relationships fail. I mean, we kind of